Hello. Okay. I hope you guys are doing well. And we are live, and we've been having some technical glitches and difficulties, but I'm waiting for my guest, Justine Beauregard, to come back into stage and share her entrepreneurial journey. And I'm just uh, guessing that with her story, you're gonna hear many of your own stories in um, the journey that she's had with the ups and downs. Okay, let's try once more. Hey, Justine, there you are.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, good. Sorry about that technical glitch. And that's the thing about doing live. Sometimes things like this happen. I've had people have power outages, and this is not on you. This is a total technological platform thing. So thanks for joining once again. I wanted to deep dive in, getting into your brain on how you sell with integrity and authenticity. So welcome back to the Sales Ninja Show podcast. Wanted to start with, how you got started hosting puppet shows in your backyard for $5 a ticket. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I had the great fortune of being raised in a family with a lot of strong matriarch entrepreneurs. So
Mm.
my grandmother was a serial entrepreneur with real estate ventures, and she was one of the founding women of Women in Electronics. My aunt came here from Japan. She started a company in tech, and my mom actually worked for her. So I had a lot of experience kind of being surrounded by business from a very young age. After school, my mom was a single mom, and I used to go with her to work and kind of sit in the office and watch people come in and out and see them talking to vendors. And I just was so fascinated by all of it. The fax machine noises in the background. I'm dating myself a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it was like that energy of just a really busy workplace. And so I was like, I want to have my own business. And I tried my hand in lots of things. And my dad, I remember him, when I was little and he still was with my mom, he used to have work socks, and because he would work, a lot, his socks would be torn on the heels and he would have to throw them away. And I was like, we should find another use for these. So then my mom, who was super crafty, was like, I have this box of buttons and fabric, and I can teach you to sew and we can make
Oh,
sock puppets. So
yeah.
I started making these sock puppets, and then I was like, I'm going to put on a show in the backyard, and I'm going to charge like aunts and uncles and neighbors, because we had all of our family lived within 10 minutes of each other. So, and I'm Italian, so my family is really
Ah,
big. And I used to host these puppet shows, and we had this bar on our swing set in the backyard,
oh,
and
nice.
I would take it off the swing set, flip it into the ground as like a stake. And
Yeah.
I would say, you have to buy a ticket. You have to get on the ground with me as a 6-year-old, and you have to come to the ticket window, which was on the ground. And they would come and they would pay me $5. And then me and my sister would put on this whole show, and it was great.
What?
Yeah.
That's really young. 6-year-old taking your dad's work socks, which were holy, and taking those
Yes.
buttons and making puppets. So, who was the seamstress? Was it both of you and your sister? And what kind of puppets did you make? And what kind of shows did you entertain people with?
Yeah, it was more me and my mom who were sewing.
Okay.
My sister wasn't super into it. I actually still
Hmm.
sew to this day. It's one of my favorite hobbies to
Really?
do.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
sewed all the curtains in my house. I bought like
Wow.
luxurious fabrics and like made all of that. It's sort of just like one of those fun facts. But yeah, my mom, because she was so creative and she used to tell us bedtime stories all the time. And some of my favorites were, Hansel and Gretel, like story,
Mm.
Three Bears and Goldilocks, things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we would do those types of stories just because we knew them by heart because we heard them every night. So we would just kind of put on a show like, what would this look like for puppets and how would they do it?
And so, did you have like a whole entourage of sock puppets that you made? Like, how many were there?
Oh, yeah, probably at least 10 different styles.
And how long did you do that for?
Maybe a couple of summers, like
Okay.
2. And then I got into making jewelry because I started creating my own business cards and laminating them in my laminating machine. And I created
What?
something, they
Wow.
called it JJ's Jewelry Co. because my family called me JJ growing up. And I used to make I made friendship bracelets, I made keychains. And then I got into a little bit later, I got into Swarovski crystals and like
Wow.
upgraded a little bit.
Wow.
So that was really fun too. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And that's like, as a as a elementary school child, what were your friends and neighbors and parents thinking? Did they think that was like a normal thing because that was you have an entrepreneurial family, or they were like, well, that's really different because we didn't do that when we were your age, that young.
You know, so a lot of people played house or, school or different games like that. And I would always play store. And I got everybody really excited about that idea. Like, let's play store. And one of us is like the store proprietor, and we're going to run the store. And so we would take like different things from the house and we would film these commercials. So I remember
What?
grabbing like mouthwash and filming a commercial for it. And then we would have like different we would use monopoly money, and I would set everybody up with like, okay, you have a budget for your household, you have a budget for your household, like we're going to play store. And so like from a very young age I got everybody kind of involved in it, and it so it didn't I used kind of things that they were familiar with, but I made them very entrepreneurial. And I think my family was just used to it. They were like, oh, that's Justine, she's just got a million business ideas, and that's just who she is and what she does. So it's just something I think they were used to. For me, I don't know that it was normal for other households, but it was certainly not abnormal for mine.
Right. I don't think that's normal for most people, because at least the friends and family and people that I know usually take a traditional route where, they're busy with, being a kid, or busy being, going into like activities like sports or swimming, and then going through the, what I call the matrix, which is that educational assembly line where the meme is like you're born, you get education, you work, and then it's RIP, which is not, it's a cosmic killjoy kind of, but like there's so much more to life than that. And people who choose the corporate 9 to 5, respect to you guys. For me, it wasn't something I could stay in because I felt like I was trapped. I felt, kind of miserable inside, even though I was trying to convince myself that this was the way and maybe the only way. And I didn't know that there was another way, and discovered entrepreneurship. So tell me what your journey was like. Did you go through kind of like the matrix of like, this is what you're expected to do. This is, you're supposed to get a certain education and work for someone for the rest of your life? Or did you continue to, as that child and that creativity, explore that entrepreneurship and maybe not follow the traveled path, if you will?
So I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. That was obviously clear from a
Yeah.
really young
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
But growing up, having divorced parents and being in sort of a lower class financial situation, similar to your story, right?
Mm,
I wasn't below the poverty line, certainly, but I was definitely not, we weren't like very well off, and our family struggled a lot growing up. And
mhm.
I think that, there was part of me that always knew I would be a business owner, and a part of me that felt a sense of obligation to take care of myself and be in a financial situation that I was comfortable in how I was living, right? Like I'm at a certain point responsible for my income and finances and budget and all of that. And I don't want to be in a situation where I'm dependent on somebody else, or I don't have the means to do what I want to do. And so there was a little bit of a backslide, I would say, like away from entrepreneurship, where it became more of like, I'll get to this eventually, like a dream for one day kind of thing. And then got a job at a startup in tech, just thinking like, this is what I need to do. And I just kind of worked my way through a couple of companies, a lot of M&As, because I worked for startups and it was kind of a volatile environment. And I thought, I'm so tired of this. Every 8 months to a year and a half, there's a merger and acquisition, and they want me to move or do something else. And I'm traveling all the time, and everyone thinks it's glamorous, but my life is like not stable and it's not easy. And I
Yeah.
couldn't keep friendships and I couldn't get a relationship, and everything was difficult. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do the responsible thing. I'm going to get a job at a nonprofit. And that way I'll be able to do something where I can give back and feel better about the work that I'm doing. At least I'm working towards the bottom line of something that I care about and that's meaningful.
Right.
And so I got a job with basically no experience, being a director of annual giving and working at this educational nonprofit. And it was a wonderful experience, but it was one of those things where I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do. I was in the right place, but I wasn't doing the right job. And so there was always still this calling where I was like, okay, I was doing, the right job in the wrong place, and then the wrong job in the right place, but like I want the right job in the right place. And I couldn't quite figure it out. And so I got pregnant with my first child, and my husband at the time, I was the breadwinner, and he was like, why don't you stay home and start your business now? And I was like, well, I'm not ready. I need to be, in my 50s and do consulting, like the responsible thing to do. I'm the breadwinner. I have to keep making all the money and do this job and have stability. And he was like, you're the most like nailed down, regimented, like you will make it work no matter what it is. Like you always figure it out. You always find a way. Like, let's sit down. Let's figure out what our budget actually needs to be. How much money do you need to make in this business for you to stay home? Because there's expenses associated with daycare and all of those things. And we have to factor those in. And so we sat down and we figured it out. And I said, let's give it a year. And it's been 11. And now I'm unemployable. So here we are.
And there's something about that, with your husband at the time that, he really kind of called you to something maybe you weren't ready for, maybe you didn't believe in, that when someone
Yep.
believes in you and, kind of challenges you to something maybe you didn't think of, or maybe that you didn't think of was the right timing. Tell us more about how someone's belief and your own belief in yourself helped you not having to worry about, like, finding a job and, have that the hardships that you had financially when you were growing up.
I mean, the thing is, I don't know that the worry goes away,
Yeah,
right? We just
yeah.
sort of learn
Well
how
said.
to
Well
live with
said.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there's always thoughts of, and throughout the years of running my company and changing direction, and I started as a marketing consultancy kind of agency model. And then I moved into a coaching model, kind of general business coaching. But all along, it was like the story was on the wall already. I loved sales, it was part of everything that I did throughout my whole career. I sort of made positions for myself and inserted myself into the sales organization at every company I'd worked for. And even the job at the nonprofit, even though it was a fundraising job, it was a sales job. Right. And so having that kind of through line, the throughout my journey as an entrepreneur, there were multiple times where I thought, I'll just go get a job, or I feel like this isn't going to work, or something major has to change, things like that. And the worry would set in, and the fear would set in, and the doubt would set in. And there got to a point where finally, about 2 years ago, I just decided this isn't really what I was wanting to be doing in this way, right? Like I was always kind of looking for the right thing instead of just allowing the right thing to be what it was. And so eventually I kind of just took a backseat and was like, okay, just this is what I'm doing. Everyone is telling me you're incredible at sales. I wish you could just teach me sales, do sales for me, all the things with sales. And I'm like, that's all I want to do. That's all I love to do. And then eventually it just kind of formulated into the current program that I have, which is my life's work, really. But it took 20 years to get to this point. Everybody says the overnight success is not an overnight success. And
yeah, yeah.
it couldn't be more true with me as well.
So true. And because we're talking about sales for the Sales Ninja Show podcast, you've mastered selling without feeling salesy. Can you share either a framework or a key mindset shift that helped you make this transition from what some people may call the traditional sales tactics, or others may call the used car salesperson tactic, which is
Hmm.
a more aggressive, sleazy approach.
Yeah. So, well, first, I have a lot of frameworks. There's a lot of things I could share, but because you brought up the car salesman, I love using that as an example because when you go into a car dealership, I think what people picture is someone who doesn't care about the consumer. You're a transaction, you're a number on a spreadsheet. Like, I've got to hit my sales quota, I got to sell X amount of vehicles. And so it's just a volume game. People come on
Yeah,
the lot and I'm just churning out a car,
yeah,
left and
yeah.
right.
Right.
Versus the way that I sell is still, you could still be selling cars,
Hmm.
right? You could sell whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's a buyer centric approach, not a seller centric approach. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is, usually the seller centric approach follows the methodology of, let me ask questions that give me the answers I need. Like, what's your budget? What's your timeline? What features do you want? So I can match you with the exact vehicle that I know is going to make me money. Versus the buyer centric approach is, who are you? What do you care about? What's important to you? And then naturally, you'll find all the other answers. You'll figure out what their budget is. And so I use this story as a visualization of this, which is, there's a woman who comes on to a car lot and she's driving a minivan and there's three kids in the back, and she gets out and she looks totally exhausted. She's in her mid 30s. Her hair hasn't been brushed in 2 days. She's kind of disheveled. She has like a throw up stain on her somewhere. And she's dragging these kids in. And the car dealer walks up to her and he's like, all right, let's get you a Honda Odyssey or whatever. Like, let's get you into
Yeah,
some
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
other minivan.
Right.
But the truth of this woman is that she is actually in law school, which is why she
Mm,
hasn't slept in 2 days, because
mm,
her LSATs are coming up and she's
hmm,
been prepping for the exam.
hmm,
She's nannying for this family because they have
mm,
3 kids and
mm,
it paid her more than the other job she was doing. So she took it. And she's driving this van because it's the family's van. And she's actually looking for a cute red coupe because
hmm,
she's about to get her law degree and wants to
hmm.
show off to all her friends
Yeah,
when
yeah,
she
yeah,
goes
yeah.
to announce the news. And
Mm,
so when you approach it like, let's get you in the van before you ask any questions, she's going to be like, that's not what I'm looking for. Right.
mm,
Versus the way I sell is, I see this woman and I make no assumptions about her.
hmm,
I see her and I just say, hey, what brings you in today? And I noticed her body language and I noticed that she looks tired and overwhelmed. And I say, hey, before we even start to look for a vehicle for you, and I'm going to get to those questions in a minute, let's get these kids a snack and put them in our daycare center in the back. We've got toys, games, they're going to be totally taken care of. Let's give you a little bit of a break. Can I get you some water? Would that be good? Okay, great. And now I'm building her comfort. I'm taking care of her. I'm listening to her needs. I'm observing some of her needs. Then we sit down and I ask, what are you looking for? And she says, I'm looking for a red coupe. And now I can put her in the right vehicle. So you notice that it doesn't take very much longer or any more effort, really, to be in the moment, be present, be observant, be caring, be mindful, to give this person an exceptional 10 out of 10 experience versus the person who says, churn and burn, got to get through all these people. Let's go, get you in a van, get you off the lot. Who's the next person? And
right.
so that's kind of how I use the example of teaching with compassion and empathy and in a way that feels high integrity to you.
Brilliant. I think that in itself is a masterclass where we don't ever assume or judge a book by its cover, because just like, and I love that you took that story, because the power of storytelling is story selling, which is when we can uh, depict the scenario, then people can see themselves in their shoes. And as you're even teaching and training, and even with your own clients and with the people that are in this audience here, people can actually relate and say that resonates because that's the situation that I'm in, or I was in, or I'm going to be in. And I think, whenever we assume, like the older sales traditional tactics where, we make assumptions, we think we're being smart and witty, but we're actually not helping them because that's not actually what they want. And we're trying to give them what we think they need. But that, the buyer centric and the seller centric was brilliant. So How about with entrepreneurs who feel uncomfortable with selling, connecting over selling? What advice do you have or would you give them to focus on connecting with their potential clients rather than simply pushing a product or service? And you can maybe tagline on maybe the story and the framework you were talking about.
Yeah, even that, I teach a couple of different frameworks, which are kind of the core of my signature program. And one of them is how we close sales on the call and how we connect to people, right? And
Hmm.
I think what it really comes down to and what people need to have, there are a couple things. Number one, your marketing should do 90% of the heavy lifting for you on the sales side. So
Amen.
if
Yeah.
you're getting into a conversation where people have basic questions that are left unanswered or they're not fully qualified, like that's the job of your marketing. And you're making it harder on yourself by not making your marketing better, right? So the way I define marketing is just pre-selling. It's warming people up to what you sell and helping proactively overcome objections and qualify people. So when you're putting marketing content out into the world, you kind of want that to be prepping and priming people in a way that builds comfort, familiarity, and all of that. And then you also want to have an offer that you're obsessed with, right? Because if we're kind of just, my offer's okay, you're going to be outsold on your sales calls in a hot second. Like as soon as you get on the call and someone has an objection, you're like, yeah, I don't like that part of my offer either. Or yeah, I know that probably could be taken out. You have to be 100% sold. And that's my main thing that I teach everyone is never be outsold. So there has to be, similar to your background as a pastor, we have ideologies, right? And we have
Yep.
things that we believe in deeply. And the number one thing you need to be believing in, even more than yourself and your own abilities, is the thing that you're selling as the solution or the mechanism for the person you're talking to get where they want to go. And the minute that you don't believe that, even a little bit, you've left a door wide open and people find that door. They're going to walk right through it. So you need to make sure that your door is sealed and you're really confident and certain that that is a great offer, because that's also how you sell with integrity. When people come to me and want to buy my offer and they have any types of questions about it, I'm like, I welcome all of them, all of the questions, all of the objections, all of the doubts, all of the fears, because to me, my offer is a steal of a deal. It's an incredible value. I love every part of it. It's simple, it's easy, it's effective, it's proven to work. Like there are no objections that I can receive and not overcome very easily. And that's not just from being a 20-year sales expert. That's also from being obsessed with my offer and meticulous about every part of it. And so it's kind of like when you think about pizza shops and how pizza shops open up and close down all the time. And a lot of them compete on price because they have to, because they're competing with the Domino's and the other giant pizza places of the world, right? But there's this one little pizza shop, and the owners spent years perfecting the sauce recipe and the ratio of cheese to bread and all of the things. And they don't really even heavily market this pizza. They just take pride in the pizza. They love the pizza. They're obsessed with it. And the first customer walks in, they position themselves well in the town so people see their pizza place. And eventually someone goes in and they go, oh my gosh, I've never had pizza like this before. And then the next person comes in and the next person, and they start telling all of their friends about the pizza. Soon this pizza place is booming. They're winning awards. They're able to charge twice as much as all the other pizza places. They're just crushing it and they're loving it. And their customers come back over and over again. They don't need to discount. They don't need to buy any cheap ingredients. They get to stay integrous with their process because they perfected the recipe. And that's what we're looking for. You can play the volume game all day. You can build a semi decent offer and you can push it through ads and you can hustle and do all the things and, whatever. But the way that I sell is to build something that's based on your own expertise. Only you can do it in the way that you do it. You love it, you become obsessed with it, and you make it so good that eventually you're not responsible for even marketing it or selling it. Other people are doing that for you because it's so good. So even though it takes extra time, choose your hard. You're going to take extra time upfront perfecting the recipe and then having people do all the hard work forever and ever, or you're going to do a really poor job of building a semi-decent offer that you constantly have to pour effort into for the rest of your career trying to sell this thing yourself. And so I always say front load the effort and then watch the sales kind of just flow.
Said it better. So, what practical steps can people take to create that perfect recipe? Because a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the feast and famine cycle and what we would call marketing that pre-sells, pre-qualifies, as you mentioned. They might have an offer that they really love and they're obsessed about, but their marketing, is either lacking or they're not doing enough of it, or they don't know how to do it. What kind of practical steps can you give to people who are listening to this podcast on those who struggle with that feast and famine cycle to make sure that they have consistent, sustainable sales?
Well, the feast and famine cycle is actually confirmation bias for how your business is run, right?
Hmm.
So if you have a business where you show up sometimes, not all the time, or you post a lot and then a little, or you have a bunch of leads because you go to one event a year and then all the leads dry up 3 months, 6 months later, or whatever, or you have launch cycles in your business, however you've set it up. Like feast and famine is basically the result of an inconsistent or unproven process. And so I am a very process oriented salesperson. In order to get consistency, you must be consistent. And that is different than frequency, right? When I say consistency, I don't mean you have to post every day or twice a day or that you have to do certain X, Y, or Z things. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet. Everyone's looking for the magic formula. And there is one, but it's yours, right? We create our secret sauce in how we sell and market our businesses through our own expertise and experiences and what's unique to us. So I have clients who we've figured out some backdoor using SEO backlinks and grab directories and did an outreach strategy that they absolutely loved. That's not how I like to sell. Right. But that's how they like to sell and what worked for them. I have another person who doesn't do any social media at all. Her entire business is in-person events and she loves it. And she does hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I don't love that because I'm an introvert. So my energy needs to be preserved. Right. But that's okay. That's great. Right. And then I have other clients who only use social media. And they don't do any events, they don't do any in person. All they do is Instagram. And they make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that way. So it doesn't really matter what you choose, which is kind of an overwhelming thought, right? Like anything can work. It's like, okay, well, if anything can work, then how come nothing is working? And
Yeah.
what happens with that is really you have to decide what you're going to be able to do. It's sort of like a workout. If I tell you you have to run every day to lose 10 pounds and you hate running with a passion, you're not going to go running. You're only going to do it because you feel like you have to, and eventually you're going to stop doing it. Versus if I say, find a workout that you love, that you will commit to doing every single day. For me, it's heavy bag boxing. I know, surprising, but
Really? Yeah.
I will do it all the time. I will never get tired of it. I will go to the gym every day. I will love it every time I go. I will never not look forward to it. And so that unlock is
Hmm.
really, if you want to avoid feast and famine, you've got to nail your process for you. It has to be something that you actually want to do. And when you have that moment of, I'm not really loving anything, usually it's deeper. It's not usually the thing you're doing that you're not loving. When you say, I love my offer, I want to really see it because when you love your offer, when you're truly obsessed with the thing that you sell, you can't help but share it. You can't help but wake up like me with the puppet shows and me with the jewelry. Like I was 17 years old. I graduated from high school and my dad took me on a trip to Aruba for a few
Oh,
days as a
nice.
graduation
Nice.
gift.
Beautiful.
And I packed my suitcase with about 40 pieces of jewelry that I was selling. And I went to Aruba and I sold all 40 pieces while I was on vacation.
On the beach?
Just because I was obsessed with my jewelry. I wore it. I took it out. I did, like everywhere I went, people were like, "Oh, I love your earrings." I'm like, "Do you want to buy some? I have some with me. They're $15 or whatever." And then I would just sell them to people as I would meet them. And my dad was like, "What are you doing? We're on vacation." I'm like, "This is a vacation for me. I love it. I can't help myself but do it." And that's the check-in point of like, are you saying you love it? Or are you truly loving it? Because you will stop at nothing to make it work when you get to that point. I think a lot of people feel just okay about their offers, and they're waiting for that moment where it all unlocks and they go, "Oh my gosh, this is the thing." And it might just be a pricing shift. It might be a fulfillment issue. It might be something on the back end. It might be something that's just like subconsciously burning you out. Maybe it's the way that you're fulfilling it or something. Maybe you love the offer, but there's something about it. That's the thing to really dig into. What's the real reason? Because there always is one.
Root issues, and instead of these band-aid fixes with so-called experts or overnight gurus. And I have a lot of clients that have been burned by so-called gurus or coaches and haven't gotten the results that they're looking for. Speaking of results, and we're going to go to a last question, and then I'm going to do a lightning round, which is a bunch of questions. And it's like a game show where I just ask questions and you just react with whatever comes first. Results is that you've been able to get your clients 10 to 50K for many of them in 30 days. That's astounding.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that you focus on, and how do you get them to achieve these kinds of growth?
It's so interesting because it's different with every person. And this is
I
where
bet, yeah.
expertise really comes into play, because I have a framework called the repeat framework, and it's 6 core areas of a business. And I know within 5 minutes of meeting somebody and them telling me what's going on, exactly where their problem is. And so we just laser in on that thing. Like one of my clients, Maureen, she was selling something and had a line out the door of people who were excited to work with her, but she had process issues. And so she could only onboard so many people, and everything was manual. And she was offering features in her offer that nobody wanted or needed. There were a bunch of things like that. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to automate your onboarding. We're going to turn these things into templates that they can do themselves, which will actually make them feel empowered and give them tools that they can use repetitively. We're going to build out this thing." And we built out a couple of things. She had a VA already. So I was like, this is going to be super simple. And in 1 month, she went from 18K to 36K, literally doubled sales, because she already had the leads. She just didn't have the capacity. And that's what happens in a lot of businesses, right? We are missing one unlock. It's one thing about your business. Another client that I just started working with has this offer that's super low ticket. And I'm like, why are you offering this? And then as we're talking about it, I'm like, if you take out this one piece of that offer, you're going to save 75% of your time, and people don't even need that. You could do it as an upsell. And then what you could do is white label partner. So instead of getting 27 individual clients, you get one person partnered with you where you white label, and now you're serving all 27 of their clients repetitively because they already established brand loyalty with those people. So your churn gets lower, your customer acquisition gets cheaper. Like, these are the types of unlocks, but we don't see them ourselves a lot of the time. So you have to really know the business, what's going on, or be able to have that lens into it to really know where to start. It's not like do these 3 things and every time you're going to unlock 50K in sales. It's where is your business now? What is it missing, or where are the bottlenecks? And then you have to kind of work it from there.
Okay, so that takes us to our lightning round. And I want to say for those who are listening that you guys need to go back and listen to these gold nuggets that Justine shared. There were so many of them. I love the stories. I love the challenges. I love the selling on Aruba. We were just there recently, and it's beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful.
awesome.
So a lightning round for you, Justine, is what's one dream job that is not anywhere related to what you're doing that you would love to do, and whether it was growing up as a kid or you just always wanted to do that's not related to what you're doing now?
I think I always wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's the one book, speaking about writing, what's the one book or resource that you recommend to every entrepreneur that they read to improve their sales?
10x is easier than 2x.
I love that. Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yep.
Um,
Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan, yeah. All of their books are excellent, by the way.
Yeah, Who Not How is another great one.
It is. And The Gap in the Gain. So what's a common misconception about sales that you'd love to debunk?
I say that the antidote to pushiness is advocacy. And if you advocate for people, like, I know what you want and I'm here to fight for you getting that, not fight for the sale, it changes everything.
Wow. That was deep. I love that. And last one is, in one sentence, what's your top tip for someone who's new to selling but wants to start with authenticity?
You can't try to be authentic, so just be yourself.
These are all, I don't know how you say it in X, but in the old days, we can tweet all these. So just be yourself,
They're tweetable.
right? Yeah, they're tweetable, right? They're Xable or whatever you call it these days. And that brings us to a wrap, everyone. Justine has a sales masterclass, and I want you to kind of promote it if you don't mind. Give us the date, give us the details, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so I have a masterclass called The Close Sales on Repeat Method: How to Double Your Sales in 30 Days. And that does not involve hustling or feeling pushy or sleazy or any of those types of things. So we host them monthly. As soon as you register, you unlock a calendar with the available dates that you can sign up for. So there's actually multiple opportunities to join. And we will walk through the 3 core frameworks that I have perfected, really my life's work, that are the foundation of my program. I will walk you through how to attract your dream clients right off the bat. Then we'll talk about how to close them repeatedly without feeling salesy or pushy at all. And then finally, we'll talk about that repeatability aspect and the areas of your business you need to look at in order to create more consistent and predictable income and stay out of those feast and famine cycles.
All said. And so there you guys have it, from backyard puppet shows for $5 to selling jewelry in Aruba beaches, to being able to perfect these frameworks to help you sell by being authentic, and through story selling, which is, that non-salesy, non-sleazy approach, which is buyer-centric versus seller-centric. So please follow Justine in the social media handles that we're going to send to you guys in the comments. Sign up for her masterclass and learn how to double your sales in 30 days with no hustle. Thank you, Justine, so much for your time and so much for your sales insights.
Thank you so much. And if you love this episode, please rate and review the show. Jay does such a brilliant job of hosting this, and I've listened to many episodes and they're all
Oh,
great.
really?
So
Well
please pay it
said.
forward. Yeah.
I got to say that as well. So I'm going to include that. So thank you so much, Justine.
Yeah.
Take care.